Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another episode of the Scho Bro Show. This is the Steel Curtain Network's Dave Schofield coming at you on Tuesday night. It is just after 9 o'clock. Yeah, we're pretty close to on time tonight. As a Steelers fan, where else would you rather be? And with me as always, except when he's not, is my big brother, Rich. Rich, how's it going tonight?
Welcome to the Bro Show. Going all right tonight. Let's talk Steeler football.
Better than last week, man. I didn't completely flub the opening, right?
Yeah, that was much better.
Yeah, so I'm doing better.
I don't know. I wasn't listening. So I don't know if you messed it up this week or not.
Of course you weren't listening. Of course you weren't listening. Hey, if we want to briefly talk about some Steelers news, really the biggest news is what's to come. And that is, there was a rumor out there that the NFL might not have the schedule ready. You know what? How else can the NFL dominate headlines by saying maybe it's not ready? And then that's a topic. And then, okay, it's definitely ready. And then that's a topic. And then you'll have, I think they're going to announce some games tomorrow, Wednesday. And then they're going to announce a few Thursday morning. Talk about driving the news cycle for as much as they can. But we'll get the complete schedule Thursday evening. We'll break it down on the Steelers preview. You and I will be back next Tuesday. We talk about it from the fan perspective, from the experience perspective, best games to go to, which ones you might want to look to go to, what would be some possibly good road games. Because the Steelers last year, they were really confined close to Pittsburgh. They're all over the place this year. So Steelers fans that are spread across the continental United States, sorry about you international fans, but for spread across continental United States, much better chance of having the Steelers coming close to you this year. So we'll be talking about that extensively. I don't know about you. I get excited about the schedule because I want to know what games I'm going to.
Yeah, me too. That's actually what I was thinking before we went on here while I was getting everything ready. I was like, by Thursday night, have an idea what the home games are and then figure out which ones I'm going to be going to.
I'll ask you this question. There is a very, very good chance the Steelers open at home this year. They haven't done it for 8 years. And people are like, oh, yeah, it's not going to be. The reason it is because the Pirates aren't at home that weekend. The Pirates are at home the next weekend. So you can almost bank on week 2, unless the Steelers are playing Sunday night or Monday night, that they will, because I'm pretty sure the Pirates aren't at home that Monday, because I checked that, that they're more than likely going to be on the road week 2. So they've got to give them a week 1 home game this year. Do you think the streak ends?
Good chance the streak finally comes to an end.
Are you interested in the home opener to attend?
Maybe.
Just curious. I'll be honest with you.
This year because I won't have to sit in the sun the whole time.
That's right. Your seats are a little bit different this year. So yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, it's warm. Like my son, who I took the last 2 years, specifically last year, he wanted to go in November because even October was too hot for him the year before. But then he doesn't want to go and it's too cold. But yeah, we'll have plenty of breakdown on that next week. It's exciting to think about. To me, that really gets the 2023 season rolling. You've got the draft. Now, I like that they now have the schedule after the draft because you have a better idea of your team, and then you're really looking forward. Love that. So, Kathy, got to bring this up there. She says, I have ticket to Pittsburgh for the first weekend. Optimistic. Okay. Optimistic that they're going to be doing that.
Hold on, I'm going to bring this one up. Sherry says, thinking of Jacksonville for the home opener. I'm actually hoping not.
You don't want Jacksonville?
No, I do not.
Why is that one you want to? Tell us why, Rich.
Because I think I already have those tickets sold.
Oh, that you have someone that wants you. Oh, yes, of course you do.
Of course I do.
Take someone with you. Or are you like me that you don't want to take a fan from the team that they
Oh,
play?
I'm not taking a fan from another team. No way.
Yes. I got you there. I did an article today with Brian Anthony Davis where we predict the schedule. If you're interested in that, check it out at behindthesteelcurtain.com. Yes, that website still exists. There, I'll get that out. Afton says she thinks it's going to be Cleveland. It's going to be Cleveland. You know what? Could be. Cleveland was one of my ones. You know who I went with?
You know what?
What's up?
Cleveland never rocked.
Cleveland never rocked. I went with the team that the Steelers have opened up with when they've played at home in week 1. The team that they've opened up with 2 of the last 4 times. Now, I don't know that you were able to check out this article because that would have tipped you off there. Do you know who that is?
Nope.
Out of the last 4 times the Steelers have opened at home, twice, it's been the Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
But to go back 4 times with the Steelers playing in Pittsburgh on week 1, you have to go all the way back to 2009. It was a Thursday because it was after winning the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
That's how far you have to go back to get 4 week 1 home games for the Steelers. You have to go all the way back to them opening up at home after winning the Super Bowl. Wow. That's how much has been on the road. So
I'd like it to be the Titans because I've had good luck with the Titans and home games at Pittsburgh.
Oh, yeah. You know what? Both of us. 2-0. 2-0. Yep. So that I wouldn't do that. It's so much easier to break it down once we know it. So we'll do that next week.
We'll get there.
Ooh, Rich, let's talk about tonight's. Oh, I also have a special announcement. We'll do it right before the break. A special announcement of some stuff going on. We want to make sure we do it. So you have to remind me, live chat, Rich, everyone, because you know me, I'll roll right into it. And I don't want to have to do it coming out of the break. It's more fun to do it before the break. So we're talking about something that if you listen to all our podcasts on the audio side, this is a topic you might have just heard in the most recent episode. This was with the Steelers fix. Now, there's a little bit of story behind this. We won't go into the story. But also, if you follow behindthesteelcurtain.com, yes, that website still exists. I got to say it every time. And some articles that I've been done on the weekend, spread out since the end of the regular season, or which was the end of the Steelers season, and that is it's kind of fans' confidence by position. But I didn't want to just do it. Oh, which one are you the most confident in? And then the one that has the lowest votes is who they're the least confident in, because that's not necessarily the case. So I did them in pairs. I did what position group are you most concerned about? And then because that's going to drive the conversation anyway. So I figured if I do the other one first, people will talk about this. So might as well ask this one first. And then, so what they're most concerned about, and then they were least concerned about. I did it at 4 different times. I did it following the 2022 season and with specific instructions, which most people got right. But someone came in the comments of the article and said, "Oh, how can you do that when the Steelers have this many free agents?" We're like, read the instructions. It was specifically looking back at last year. What position group did you have the most confidence in? Which one did you have the least confidence in? We did it for looking back at 2022, then going into free agency, then after the main part of free agency, heading into the draft, and then this past weekend, looking at it following the draft, a week later following the draft, what do you think? And I'll be honest with you, those 2 articles, these polls are still open. So I'm giving the results of the poll, but they're still open. So if you check that out, you can see that there and can still vote. So Rich, we're going to break this down by position group. And I'll tell you, I didn't separate the offensive line. I put all the offensive line together, defensive line. So if you look at the options, I will tell you the options were running back, tight end, quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line. That's for the offense. Then for the defense, you had outside linebacker, safety, inside linebacker, cornerback. Did I say defensive line? I don't know if I said that. No. I think I did.
No,
there.
You did.
Defensive line. No, I said it. And also specialists. I had the specialists thrown in there. So the question was, where did people see these things at various points of the season. So we're going to go through and we're going to look at that evolution and see how it changed. This was the topic that they talked about on the Steelers Fix, and it's going to be interesting with some of these results because they were kind of split on something. And I'll be honest with you, we have two different positions that switched. I'm looking at the top three for everyone, and I have two different positions that have switched. So you might be able to figure those out nice and early. You ready to dive into this?
Well, let's dive.
Okay. So the first thing we did,
to rig for diving.
Okay. So we're going to look at these results. We're going to talk about if we agree with them. We want to hear from you in the live chat if you agree with them, what they would be. We're going to look at first the most concerning position group looking back at 2022. And I'm glad we did this back in I can't remember if it was the very end of January or the beginning of February, because it was fresh in our minds.
Yes.
Okay. What do you think was the most concerning position group looking back at last year across the board?
Inside linebacker.
You are correct. It was inside linebacker, voted on the fans. 58% of them said that it was inside linebacker. And yeah, what else?
I was one of those 58%.
You were one of those. So you voted on that one. You were one of the 58%. Mm-hmm. That was number one, looking back at last year. Number two was offensive line. Most concerning. It was at 21%. So it was overwhelming inside linebacker. Mm-hmm. Then it concerned about offensive line. Then the next concern was defensive line at 9%. So that was, a much lower percent than the other ones, but it went inside linebacker, offensive line, defensive line. What do you feel about that one? Did you think they got it right? Would you put those in your top three?
I would have put the inside linebacker because I did.
Yes, I agree. I completely agree.
And the offensive line, I probably would have put there, not because I was maybe super duper concerned about it, but anytime your quarterback comes out of the season having suffered a couple concussions, it's got to be a concern.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes those concussions, one of them was, my goodness.
Actually, if you'd have asked that question in the middle of the season, I might have put the offensive line first.
Yeah.
But was much happy with their play at the end. So actually, I was pretty happy with where that ranked out, especially based on what the percentages ended up being.
Yep. See, Reginald, he agrees. He says inside linebacker.
Yeah.
So, you all let us know if you think those were the top three. And I think, look, inside linebacker was almost twice of the other two combined. It was that.
Yeah. Okay? Ron Schultz agreed there, said O-line in the first half of the season, not the second.
Yeah. But I could still see that people were concerned. Well, because you got to, if you're picking some, but to me, I wouldn't have I'm surprised that 21% put that above inside linebacker. You got one vote.
Yeah.
You got one vote. So that one, to me, as someone who studies the offensive line, I didn't agree with anyone voting outside of inside linebacker because I thought that was really true. And the other thing that was interesting is that the Steelers were, the second half of the season last year, they were the number one defense in the NFL after TJ Watt comes back, everything else. And yet it was two defensive position groups that were on this list.
All right.
When the offense was just middle of the road.
Hold on. I got to bring this up and then I got to, get somebody a little bit. So, Sherry Richards. Hey,
Sherry didn't listen. No, sorry.
She either came in here late and missed that first.
Yeah, she probably missed this part.
Because exactly what we were talking about there was we weren't doing this knowing about free agency because there were done four times. So it was end of the season.
Yep.
Going into free agency.
Is the answer going forward. That's the next one. Yes.
Yes. That she actually just jumped the gun a little bit.
Yeah, just jumped the gun a little bit. And if you weren't here to hear the instructions at the beginning, I'm sure. But yeah, that was it. This was strict. And that's why I said this strictly on 2022, because I was trying to kind of prove a point with some stuff. People were so busy looking at what the needs were going forward. I'm like, but what about the needs from last year? The Steelers, inside linebacker was the most concerning, and they're losing guys. So because there was a time where people were kind of brushing over inside linebacker ahead of free agency. And my point was that's because sometimes so many people get focused on the draft ahead of free agency when you really need to take them in order. Let's look at the least concerning. We got to hit these. This was tight. This was tight for the least concerning. It was only a difference of 1%. But the one that was tight, the winner, you think would probably be, since I've kind of alluded to it, tight end. Least concerned about tight end.
That was my vote.
Yeah, 29%. 29%, but very close behind. Looking back at last year, number 2 was safety.
Oh, safety.
Safety, 28%.
Well, yeah.
Looking back at 2022. And then number 3 was running back at 16%. So those were the top 3 least concerning. Tight end, safety, running back. Once again, Steelers, top in the second half of the season, top defense in the league, middle of the road offense, least concerned about 2 offensive positions and only 1 defensive position, which actually doesn't hold there very long because Sherry already alluded to how it's going to be moving in that direction. So do you think that sums up 2022 pretty well with those polls?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Because to me, I also think of these polls of how would I have voted if I got to do the top, if I got to give 3 votes to one position, 2 votes to another, and 1 to a third, how would I do it? And honestly, probably pretty close to how it fell out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty close. Okay. So those were the least concerning. All right. And what's interesting, I will tell you this, the least concerning across this whole series of articles had the wider variety of like 4 or 5% across multiple positions, where when you talked about the most concerning, it was like really high or nothing.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting how this turned out. Anything else you're curious about? Any position you want to know about for either one of those categories from that one before we move on?
No.
Okay. Like if you're like, oh, well, where did so-and-so fall? Well, yeah. And what's interesting is there's some position groups that were high on both lists, just not quite into the top 3. Just sometimes how those fall out. But let's go ahead and move on to before free agency. So no longer looking back, looking forward to 2023, before the Steelers entered free agency and made moves. So here we go. How do you think that worked out for most concerning? Do you think there was a change at the top?
I don't know if there was a change at the top, but I bet the top was close.
It actually...
No?
Go ahead.
It wasn't close?
It actually got wider.
Really? Okay, yeah. Then it probably then changed to safety.
Actually, going into free agency, it was the same 3.
Really?
It was inside linebacker, 61%. Offensive line dropped down to 16%. And defensive line went up a little bit to 11%. Here's my thoughts on this. Inside linebacker, I think everyone still knew was a problem.
Yes.
Now, and when we get to the other one, I'm going to tell you someone's argument, because there are people that voted for inside linebackers as the least, and I'll tell you when we get there. Offensive line went down a little bit, because I think that has to do with the second half of the season, because that's what you have going forward.
They were trending the correct direction.
They lost nobody. None of their starters were gone. So that's why that dipped in percentage-wise, which I think makes sense, but I can still see why people are concerned. And defensive line, to me, I think that was about age. I think that was about age, and that was about Larry O, because you didn't have, you had no Larry O, and you're worried. People were worried about Cam getting older. Enjoy it while it's going, people. It'll happen eventually. Don't worry about it. Just the Steelers need to make sure they got the depth to be ready for when it happens. Anything else you want to say about those?
I'm a little surprised. Well, can I ask a question now?
Yes.
Was there a jump in safety?
Was there a jump in safety? I got to make sure I pull up the right one. That's the least concerning. It does work.
With KZ and Edmonds both free agents, was there a concern there yet? Or Or I wonder if people still had that feeling, Steelers will get something done.
People still had the feeling something's going to get done.
Okay.
Looking back at 2022, when you looked at the most concerning, it was 0%. To looking at 2022, before free agency, it moved up to 1%.
1%. Okay.
That's all the more it moved up to 1%.
Okay.
1%. Yep. So that's interesting. But I will tell you, it fell in being the most, with having the least concern.
Yeah.
It was no longer in the top anymore. It fell from 28% of being the least concerning to 3%.
Yeah.
That dropped like crazy. Because when you looked at the one that the position groups you were least concerned about, that one, there you had a big jump in running back. Running back jumped up to number 1 with 37%. Tight ends were, fell to number 2 and dropped from 29% to 18%. Because remember, you just had Freiermuth and Hayward going into free agency. And then it was safety fell out of there. Guess who came in as least concerning, third place heading into free agency?
I'm just going to go out and take a wild stab at it.
Okay.
Quarterback.
That would be correct. 13% least concerned about quarterback. They really were because you knew what you had. Kenny Pickett, you got Mitch Trubisky. Some people that want to say Mitch Trubisky's a terrible backup. I'm like, no, he's one of the best backups. There's not a big change from your starter to your backup.
Right.
That's a good thing. So you had that. So that moved up into the top 3. Going into free agency. Any other questions, Dave? What do you want to know about those?
No.
Yeah, because like you say, safety fell big time. But running back jumped up. So I think that made sense. I think that made a lot of sense with how things were going. Rich, do you think since we're halfway through, you think it's ready for the break?
Yeah, we can go ahead and take it here.
So I got to tell our little announcement as we head into the break. And Brian Brown, not for a backup. Not for a backup.
No.
If you look at the 3, there was only 2 quarterbacks that graded higher that were backup quarterbacks last year than Mitch Trubisky. There were 2 quarterbacks that graded higher than him. There were backups. Jordan Love and Brock Purdy, both of which are expected to be starters this year.
Yeah. Ron Schultz brings up a great point. Mitch is today's Tom Zach. Great backup, not a starter.
Exactly. And that's fine. That's what was his name? Jeff's favorite all time, made a boatload of money just to be a backup. What was it? Flynn that was in Green Bay and then Seattle.
Yes.
And I can't, was it Matt Flynn?
Matt Flynn.
So there's a big, kind of like how I feel about Benny Snell. Don't like Benny Snell as your number 2 running back. Love Benny Snell as your number 3 running back. Love him because he can come in when he's called on, which isn't very often, and plays great special teams. Just that one spot down the depth chart can make a huge difference in what someone is. Okay, so announcement. Everyone that's here listening live, of course, and those of you that might be listening to this on audio, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to check out the audio side of Steel Curtain Network anywhere you get podcasts. You can get it Apple, Spotify. I don't even know the names of the other ones because I use Apple and I know other people use Spotify. Check it out because tomorrow at noon, we've got the Steel City Insider podcast. That's with Jim Wexel, and I always say Jeremy's name wrong. Is it Ritz? I think it's Jeremy Ritz is the right way to say it. Me mess up a name, who'd have thought?
Spell it.
Because it starts with an H. I think it goes HR.
Never mind.
Yeah, that's the problem. That's what gets me. So make sure you check this out because they're going to be talking offensive line, but it's not just the 2 of them. They have a very special guest. They have a former Pittsburgh Steeler on their show tomorrow and current Pittsburgh Steelers announcer. So who do they got?
The Wolfman.
They got Mr. Craig Wolfley. That's who they have on their show tomorrow, talking offensive line. So that's going to be a great show. Well, you know what? it's going to be an even better show because they're not done. They have another guest that's on tomorrow. It's another former Steelers offensive lineman. But this one has a gold jacket. That's right. Alan Vanek is going to be on the show as well, talking offensive line. So make sure you're checking that out at Steel Curtain Network on our audio side, Steel City Insider. It's great enough just listening to Jim Wexel and Jeremy. But then you're going to add in Craig Wolfley and Alan Faneca. Make sure you don't miss that one. That's a great show. Make sure you're there. So
I'm gonna hold on before you roll into the break. I'm just gonna take a moment and shed a tear because only one thing would make it better.
I know if Tunch could be there too.
If Tunch was there too,
you know what? Tunch might have been there too. So love me some. That was the hardest podcast I've ever done in my life. Was to announce that one. I had never had to pause a podcast so many times before.
I don't think there was a former player that I can think of that I enjoyed listening to. I just enjoyed their voice and their breakdown. Like there are certain guys that are just up there for me in terms of just the way they can break down football. And Tunch was right up there. Another former Steeler, Merrill Hodge is another one. Some guys just have a gift at those kinds of things, and he had one. But
yes, he did.
I do love Craig Wolfley. Actually, that guy makes me crack up.
Oh my goodness.
He's pretty funny, and I really enjoy listening to him get worked up over things. And of course, how can you not love, Hall of Fame inductee Alan Faneca? I mean, we're talking about a great show then tomorrow.
Oh yeah, and remember, he just announced the Joey Porter Jr. pick. He was there. I mean, that's how you kick off night 2 of the draft. Jim talked about that last week about how that was a good one. So, all right, so that was our announcement. I said we'd do right before the break. So if you're here on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, we'll be back in a couple seconds. If you're here on the audio side, stick around. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, let's get rolling on with this change in fan confidence as we went through the offseason. We already hit, looking back at 2022, the most and least confident position groups. Before free agency, the most and the least confident position groups. So the overall consensus is the most concerning inside linebacker. That was by far. Least concerning went from tight end and safety. Safety fell off. Running back and tight end was still there. Now we're rolling into, we went through free agency. This was the weekend before the draft. The weekend,
we're not technically through free agency.
Well, it's through the main part of free agency.
There we go.
You're never through. You know when we're through free agency?
When you fold as a
wild card weekend. You can pick up a free agent anytime through the season. But yeah, they just the pool gets smaller and smaller. So, all right. Going into the draft, what do you think, Rich? Do you think inside linebacker held on to the top spot?
No.
You don't. Okay. What do you think moved into the top spot?
Actually, you know what? Maybe it did. Hold on. I'm working my way through everything here.
You're just trying to go from memory.
Okay. Nope. Here you go. No. Actually, no. I'm going to say it changed.
Okay. I already told you. Oh no, maybe I didn't. Go ahead.
I'm going to say it's not inside linebacker at the top. I don't know if it went to the top, but I know what moved up a bunch, and I'm betting it was outside linebacker.
Outside linebacker did move up a bunch. There was several of them that were close. I actually listed that as an honorable mention with the top 3. It was number 4. It moved up a bunch to 14%. But this was spread out much more than any of these others before about the most concerning. And it might have just been people felt better about inside linebacker. I don't know. It was actually cornerback.
Really?
Cornerback went up to 29%.
I guess because we absolutely lost Cam Sutton.
Yeah, and I think people aren't sure about Patrick Peterson and his age or where they're going to play him and things like that. To me, also, I feel like this was people looking at the draft and saying what they thought the Steelers needed in the draft. and voting in that manner, not necessarily for 2023. Because to me, I still think the Steelers could have gone without even drafting a corner. And I think for 2023, they'd have been fine, but they'd have been in big trouble moving forward.
Yes.
So why not address it now so you don't have to rush them? So I love that they addressed it and double dipped. So corner shot up to 29% ahead of inside linebacker at 24%.
Okay.
And I also think that the next one was based on what fans felt the Steelers needed to address in the draft, because number 3 was, you think? Maybe?
Defensive line?
It was offensive line.
Offensive line?
Yeah, offensive line. Because, people, this is about the tackles. People didn't have confidence in the tackles. So, because, went cornerback, inside linebacker, outside linebacker. And then I wrote down the next 2 because they were also close. Sorry, I said cornerback, inside linebacker, offensive line, outside linebacker, defensive line. Those ended up being the top 5 there. Because it was much closer. And the one thing I forgot to say about inside linebacker, I meant to say it when talking about the least concerning. There are some people that keep voting for inside linebackers the least concerning because they feel like it's the least important position on the defense. They feel that you could get by with adequate players or even less than adequate players if you have a strong defensive line and you have a strong secondary. And they're just saying, I'm not concerned about it because I think you could just put people out there just enough to get the job done. Where you need outstanding play from your inside linebackers is when stuff's not getting done in front of them or not getting done behind them. I can see the argument, but why not want to have the best players you can have everywhere? That's just me.
Yeah.
So that's that was that one. You're here now. Let's look at the least concerned, the most confident, the least concerned. You think there was much of a change after the big part of free agency?
I remember the first 2 were, for the last one, were what? Running back, tight end. I still think those were pretty high.
Those were still in the top 3. Actually, I'll be honest with you. All 3 of them were in the top 3, but the order changed slightly.
I forget what the third one was.
The last time it was running back, tight end, quarterback.
Quarterback, yep.
This time it went running back, quarterback, tight end. People didn't want the Steelers taking a running back.
Yeah.
And they knew that anything with a quarterback is just going to be the number 3. And then tight end, that was already after. The Steelers had already signed Zach Gentry back, so people were confident in it before, and they were rolling in with the same position group. So that's how that one played out.
Okay.
Any questions about those or anything? Any thoughts here? I'm looking here. I mean, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. You're going to get the same people in here complaining about coaches, which really has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. So, and are you curious about anything else?
Yeah. No, actually, no, I'm not. No, not really.
Okay.
Because we talk corner, we talk quarter, we talk. Yep. Nope. Yeah. I'm good.
Yeah. See, and like safety for the most concerning was still 1%, but in the least concerning, it had really fallen off. It was down to 2%. It went from 28 to 3 to 2. So, and like I said, there were still people, a few percentages saying inside linebacker. There was also one that was always in the middle of the road or above is specialists. People are like, they've got 2 punters to compete. You've got Bodge, you've got a long snapper. There's no reason to be concerned. That was just some of the explanations there. So let's get to now. Okay. Now it's time to live in the now, bro. You ready to live in the now?
No. Take that. Ha. Take that.
Okay. Most concerning, what do you think it's got to be now?
Inside linebacker.
Oh, yeah, it's shot back up like crazy.
Yeah.
Try the highest percentage so far. 66% inside linebacker. Do you want to know why I think it's so high? I think I know why.
because everything else was so addressed.
Yes, because the other concerns are now on the other side.
Other side. Yes,
So
exactly.
it's, to me, the percentage in inside linebacker went up because look, they didn't add anything in the draft or undrafted free agents.
Correct.
So they didn't add anything.
Nothing really changed.
The Steelers drafted 2 cornerbacks and you moved up in the first round to take an offensive lineman. They addressed the other 2 in the top 3. So
Right.
of course, everything's, to me, it goes up by default. Now, what do you think is number 2?
Oh, let's see.
Sorry, I kept talking about living in the now. Thomas Riley says he wants to live like it's 1978.
I like that one.
I would be an infant.
An infant, you would have been born, just weeks ago.
Yeah, I'd be less than a month old. So, all right. After inside linebacker.
After inside linebacker.
So what are you most concerned about now?
What did people? I'm just trying to guess what people are saying. I'm going to go out on a limb and say wide receiver.
Believe it or not, I'm going to bring the one that was up first. Jonathan had the next one.
Okay.
Jonathan Wilcourt. Brian had it right behind him, which was outside linebacker. Outside linebacker. That was number 2. And you know what? Afton had number 3.
Safety.
So it went 66% inside linebacker.
Really, I'm not near as worried about safety outside linebacker. I mean, am I a little worried about the outside linebacker depth?
Yeah.
Yes, but with the current setup in the NFL, you're going to roll into seasons worried about depth at a couple of positions.
Absolutely.
You're just always going to. You're just always, I'm sure it drives coaches nuts at times, sitting there thinking, I wish we had a little better depth here or here. But the problem is, with the setup of today's NFL, you're just not going to be able to get it perfect at any position. What you as a coach then are hoping is that you roll the dice, got it in the correct positions, and that it doesn't come back to bite you.
Yeah. Here's how I think about outside linebacker. This all comes down to the Steelers believing this is a position that if they had to, they can add later. And why not see what you have with who you drafted?
Yeah.
If Nick, and I said the name right, it's so funny because in bad language, he was so happy for himself that he called him Nick Herbig in the second half. Not even realize he called him Nate the entire first half.
Nice.
Sorry, man. But with Nick Herbig, yes, he's undersized. And I have an article coming out tomorrow that's something that I do every year because someone asked me to. Just looking at the size of the draft picks compared to other players at the position. And yes, he's small for an outside linebacker. Is that concerning? Absolutely. Does that mean he might not play that position? It could, but for now, that's where he is. But what if the Steelers go into training camp and realize that, man, this kid is exactly what we need for a number 3? Then you don't have to worry about having somebody else that you work into the mix.
Yeah.
But if he's not, then you get on the phone.
And don't forget, there's still questions about where does Marvin Leal fit in all this? Where's Leal? Is he a lineman? Could he be an outside linebacker? He's kind of that tweener, and you say he might be a little big for what the Steelers use as an outside linebacker, but yet then where's Herbig is maybe a little small for what,
Yeah. Exactly. So yeah, and like Sherry says, you got Roche as well. I'm not counting on Quincy Roche after 2 years away from the Steelers. I mean, it would be great. Any of those guys are bonus. But at the same time, you're like, well, what if they don't work out? I think that's a position that there are people on the market, open market, that are just waiting to see. And if the Steelers, realize they need something, they call someone up. One name I've heard thrown around there, so I'll use it as an example, Justin Houston. They say, oh, you want to call him? Say, hey, here's the deal. We got TJ, we got Alex. We love to run a 3-man rotation, and what we have just isn't working out for this season. You want to come in and be that guy?
But come in and be the guy. We'll get you 20 to 23 snaps a game.
But if you come in now, With the Steelers drafting a player there in the 4th round, you don't know if you're going to have that spot or not.
Right.
So that's why that's one that you wait on. So that's inside linebacker, outside linebacker, safety. Safety went from the number 2, only 1% behind, almost tied at the top of the least concerned for 2022 to now being in the top 3 of the most concerned.
I'm just not a super.
But I thought fans hated Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah. I'm just
that's all it is.
I'm just not as super concerned at safety as a lot of other folks are for some reason. I don't know why. It just doesn't rank very high for me right now. Is safety potentially a drop off from where they were last year? Maybe, but it was really good. You know what I mean?
I think I know what it is.
You know, what's the difference on a test score if you get a 98 or a 96? You know, if last year we were a 98 and this year we're a 96, yeah, I'm less confident in them, but does it really matter?
Still a 96.
Right.
Yeah. I think I know where the concern's coming from. I mean, I'm taking a shot. I'm not saying this is definite. I think it's that fans are concerned that without Edmonds, Minkah will have to fill a different role than what he did last year that allowed him to be Minkah. That your all-pro safety might not be able to do what he did last year based on who's playing next to him.
Maybe.
I think that's why they're concerned. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily concerned about that, but it is something intriguing to watch going into training camp. I think that's very intriguing to watch. So, all right. So now let's talk about, so we hit the most concerning. Let's talk about the least concerning. Least concerning position group right now after the draft. Like I said, the reason it's in the now is the polls are still open if you go to these articles. This one, it's the biggest landslide of being the least concerned by far. It's the only time we went over 50%. The highest one before was 37%. What do you think is the fans are least concerned about after the draft?
Tight end.
You would be correct. It's tight end. Because they were least concerned about tight end at the very beginning. Yeah, got it. At the very beginning of the season, you've got the same 3 players plus a huge steal in the 3rd round of the draft. How can you not be the most confident in that? I get it.
Yeah, right now that room's just really deep.
Yeah, it is. It is. So yeah, tight end.
You potentially got somebody that could be sitting at number 4 in our room that on a lot of teams in the league would be sitting at number 2.
Yeah. Although some people, I know like Andrew says it, I've seen other people comment on it. They still say he is not a tight end. He's not the right size. You know what? He is for how you want to use him.
Yeah.
Because my question is like, he's an H-back. Well, isn't the H-back kind of at times a tight end? Jeffrey Benedict and Jeffrey Benedict and I are doing Vertex this week on Connor Hayward, so you'll have a chance to check that out.
That's it. I think an H-back is a hybrid, halfback, fullback, tight end.
Yeah.
They technically could fill any one of those.
Exactly.
And one of my favorites in recent history, which played for the then Washington Redskins, was Chris Cooley.
Yes.
A lot of folks, a lot of times he was considered tight end, but honestly, he was an H-back.
Yes, he was.
So.
Yep. So that's why that one just shoots through the roof. And we actually had a tie percentage-wise for the next 2, but I separated them because there was like 2 different votes between them, even though they're the same percentage. At the time I looked this up, it could have changed if anyone else voted. What else do you think people are the least concerned about going into the season?
Offensive line.
That was number 3, barely behind running back.
Yeah.
So offensive line went from the number 2 most concerning coming out of 2022 and on the list all the way down in the top 3 to bumping over to now in the top 3 for the least concerning.
Well, you got to look. When you don't lose any starters, you just lose some depth pieces, and then look at what they added. Oh my goodness!
Well, I'm still trying to figure out why the percentage went up from before free agency to before the draft when you added the best guard in free agency.
That was everybody thinking we needed to take a tackle in the draft.
Yeah,
that's all that was.
Yeah,
that's all it was.
Which I figured they would at some point, and I'm really glad that they took who they took. And you know what? You'll find out tomorrow in my article. He's the smallest tackle they got. He is. So that was that one. And then safety went from being the least concerning to looking back at last year to basically not getting votes for either to being one of the more concerning after the draft. It's just interesting how it moves.
Yeah.
Interesting how it moves. Yeah. So, yeah. And it's funny.
You know, it was nice.
Mr. Woodside says we did need a tackle. Yeah, I think so. Because like I said, it's not that the Steelers didn't have 2 tackles that could play, but why not look for an upgrade? Go ahead, Rich.
And that's what they were going for. You know what was nice to not talk about this year?
Wide receiver.
Was really no, that we talked about a ton last year.
I'm trying to think what we got. Well, there was the safety going into stuff because Edmonds didn't sign late. Quarterback.
Yeah. Hello, BTR retired.
Yeah, and that, yeah. So yeah, quarterback.
Thank you, everybody in this live chat. Jerry, Awesome Docs.
I was trying to give them a chance to answer. Here's the thing, though. Jeffrey Benedict on this morning's cutting room floor was talking about the offensive line. I'm actually going to be answering a question about the offensive line on StatGeek this week, but it's not in the same manner of what Jeffrey was talking about. But Jeffrey said something about Broderick Jones that I think really hit on something. He says Broderick Jones has the physical attributes to be a top-notch left tackle in the NFL. He just needs to develop a few things. He said if he'd have been quote unquote, the phrase I hate, NFL ready tackle, he'd have been drafted in the top 3 picks because he has the physical attributes to be that kind of pick. He just, and when I did the podcast on him and the breakdown right after the Steelers drafted him, what was the biggest thing is, kind of readiness and experience. That if he'd have been ready, he'd have gone at the top. That's why I think the Steelers might have been one of the best places he could go because the Steelers returned both starters from last year. They don't have to throw him in there right away. And I know that's going to tick off a lot of fans. You're wasting so much time by not putting your first round pick out there. Put him out there and see what he can do. Do you know how many? That's why the Cleveland Browns have that uniform with so many wasted quarterbacks on where they list them all out on there. Is because just sometimes putting them out there to see what they can do when they're not ready can ruin a player in the NFL.
Now, I think Broderick Jones could still be ready to roll.
I think he could too. He just doesn't have to.
From the tape and the things that I've kind of looked at, yes, there are some things that he needs to do and get right. But honestly, they're not, I don't want to say it's not that big of things. It's not that, I don't think it's that difficult of things.
Yeah.
And I have complete confidence in the coaching staff that they're going to get those things through to him. And he's going to get it. And look out because that guy can move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That guy can move.
Yeah. But It's really not. I mean, it's funny. I don't want the Steelers. There's a difference, and some people want to argue that, oh, there's no reason to hold them back. It's not about holding them back. Don't hold them back, but don't throw them into the fire.
Don't there are certain things that if they have a bad habit at or haven't realized something they're needing to do, it's a sometimes if you don't hold I don't want to say hold them back, but it's keep them out and fix that first.
Yeah.
If you don't get some of those things fixed first before throwing them in there, you either A, they're never going to work on getting them fixed, or B, heaven forbid they do something and it messes up and you get Kenny Pickett killed.
Yeah. Because think of what happened last year with the Steelers line and why they weren't the best at the beginning of the year but got better. Was it that they were bad and they got good? No, it's that they were learning a new system. The Pat Meyer system is not your typical offensive line philosophy. It's not. So that's another thing that's going to happen with Broderick Jones. You've got two players that have played for a year with that. So you have people that you can hold in place until you know that he's going to go out there and be the guy. I would love to see him right away. And that's why I want to see him when it's right. I want to see him when it's right. But I'm excited for
him. And that's why, right now, of course it's not out there yet, but how the Steelers work. You know how Coach Tomlin is. He's not going to be at the top of the depth chart. Yeah. Because he hasn't stepped on the field for the Steelers yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So he will not start at the top. Now, if he gets to the top, it's because he's done what he's needed to do and he's earned it.
Yeah.
Every draft pick, they haven't earned anything yet other than a status of a draft pick. They haven't earned anything on a team because they've not stepped foot and put on the NFL pads and lined up with NFL players yet.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I also like what Chair Richards says about Broderick Jones. She said, don't Dan Moore him. You have Dan Moore to start.
Yeah.
Don't have to put him out there. I mean, 2021 was, like we said, that was a whole different monster. You were dealing with the salary cap issue of the cap going down. And you had people you just had to put out there because it's what you had. And Zach Banner wasn't ready. He just put out on his Twitter that he's now feeling like he's ready. It took him a long time to get over that. He's still trying to get back. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's just something to put out. Because I know Steelers fans get impatient, but you want to know why the Steelers don't get impatient? Because they're not as much as Coach Tomlin wants to win this game this week. He's not going to win this game this week at the cost of 3 down the road.
Yeah.
And that's why you put yourself in a situation to where you can do that. So gotta love it. All right, Rich.
I'm going to bring up one more. Deal with it. I agree. He says, but I think Jones starts the first game. To be honest,
I'm great with that. I said that right away after he was driving. I'm like, he could.
I have a feeling he's going to prove that he can do it too. But first, he has to prove that he can do it.
It all comes down to his time with Pat Meyer. Yeah,
he has to beat that incumbent starter out of a position.
Yeah.
I mean, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Do I think he can do it? Absolutely, I think he can do it.
Yeah.
But he's got to actually do it.
Exactly. So, all right, Rich, which way you want to take this final question tonight? We were kind of...
Man, okay. I haven't thought about what we could do with the final question.
Well, because the whole thing was questions. I didn't know if we wanted to focus in on one. How about this? Okay. No, I don't know if that one's not going to work. You know what I'm trying to give? I don't like questions where everyone gives the same answer. I really don't. Because I was tempted to say something. All right, which position group do you think is improved? But based on this, you're kind of going to know which ones have improved.
You know what?
So,
I'll throw something out there, and
okay.
you can tell me if you think you like it or not. So, since the most recent thing we had happen was the draft, and what's currently open out there for people to still vote on is, the least confidence and most confidence in after the draft.
Okay.
Why don't we ask it this way? What position group took the largest jump for you, either up? So there's going to be two pieces to this, up or down after the draft. Or basically,
so say the position and say if it was up or down.
Up or down. Yes.
Okay.
So what group took the biggest jump for you, and was it up or down?
And
I'll say after the draft, and let's take it all the way back to, I don't know. We want to take it to the end of last season. You want to go to the beginning of free agency? I think you got to do the beginning of free agency.
Yeah. So
because
through free agency and draft. Okay. Now remember, don't answer this until we put it out there in the live chat. We're not going to do it. And it's specifically which position group. I'm going to give you a chance. Why don't you give it up? I'll give it down. Okay. Unless you were going to go down. I'm going to say down. I'm going to say inside linebacker. The Steelers made some swaps in and out with free agency, but the main player they have, you're still dealing with coming off of a pretty big injury that they said might not be out there right away and things like that. And they did not address that position either through the draft or as an undrafted free agent. They added nothing to the inside linebacker room over draft weekend. So to me, it stepped down the most because it might have not moved down as much as everything else passed it up going forward. So that's me.
I understand. Yes.
Yeah.
Going up. Actually, the one that probably jumped up for me, I'm going to put up there pretty high, is corner, because I was really worried about corner because I was 98.5% sure that, Cameron Sutton was going to be gone. What were the Steelers going to do? And between signing Pat Pete and the two picks in the draft and everything, I've gained a lot more confidence in the Steelers cornerback room than what I had coming in.
Yep. And I just now it's loading. There jumped out there. Yep. I'm putting that out there because there's the comments all stopped. Everyone had it typed in, ready to go. I'm sure is what they were waiting for. So, my goodness. Yeah, here we go. Now I lost where it was. Okay, there we go. Because when the screen was a bunch. Okay, we got Gabriel Golden. Gabriel Golden says tight end. Oh, he answered for both. And if you answer for both,
that's okay.
Tight end up, inside linebacker down. Okay. Brian said corner up, ILB down. Alkinzock says corner up. Okay.
Yep.
Afton said corner room jumped. I'm not going to read the rest of it. I think you understand why we're rolling through this. I'm trying to say an actual that's an answer. That's good. I left Afton's up there for other people to read. Dennis C said inside linebacker up or down.
When I saw the next one you got to bring up, it's for Jeff.
Okay, go ahead.
Huh?
Which one is it? Is it Jacob?
Yeah.
Punter up. Well, there's competition, and it's legit competition.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Woodside says, so you could say specialists up. That's like Steelers Nation Australia said long snapper, which this would go into specialists. It's like Christian Kuntz, right. Zero competition. Okay?
Say it right. You got to say it how he'd say it.
Steelers Nation Australia, long snapper.
Long snapper.
Okay. Did I do Mr. Woodside and say cornerback up? I can't remember if I did.
I think so.
I think Ron said offensive line. I think he meant up. I'm not sure. Whoa, it jumped on me. SC says inside linebacker down. Thomas Riley says offensive line up. Dwayne Williams says TE up. You can't say just backup quarterback down. You have to look at the whole position group.
Whole position group.
The whole position.
Yep.
Okay. Great 103 says corner up. Not any that went down. Reginald, he just gave 2 ups. That's cheating, but it was defensive line and cornerback. And Wes split the group. He's right, but it does kind of go against what we're trying to do. He says outside corner up, slot corner down.
I'm not
Convinced on that because
I'm not convinced on that yet
Yeah.
either because
I don't know how they're going to use people.
Yeah,
Some people
there
were
could be some
thinking you have to
argument
have the
there.
typical slot corner, and I don't know that the Steelers are going to do things in a typical way.
Nope.
So deal with it said,
There's no way.
no way inside linebackers up. Okay. I didn't realize he said no way in front of that. I thought he was voting inside linebacker up. Sherry says O-line up, inside linebacker down.
Yep.
It seems like I love this one.
I love when
Steeler Chick 46 GM up, which is so funny because Andrew Wilbar, he did not like the Omar Khan hire because I didn't want a numbers guy. I wanted a personnel guy. You surround yourself with good personnel people.
Yeah, which he's done, and it has worked.
Okay. The Steelers didn't get Hulk. They got the whole Avengers team. They don't just look at it as one man. It wasn't just Iron Man. It was all of them. Okay. It
wasn't you get Hulk or Bruce Banner. It's you get
Yep.
You get Hulk and Bruce Banner and all the rest of the Avengers.
And all the rest of them. Okay. Richard Adamson says offensive line up. Thanks, Mean Joe says offensive line way up. Said it's the most improved one. Okay. Here we go. Wes gave a pretty good explanation there. Just said, don't think we added a good. You know why? You know why they didn't add a good slot cornerback option? Because they went with value in the 7th round and grabbed another great outside corner. They're building for beyond. So and if both those guys look great on the outside, then guess what? You've got a veteran in Patrick Peterson who some people think I think he can play anywhere in the secondary.
Yeah,
I really
do too.
If they I don't know if they will, but I'm just saying they could.
But he could.
Yep. Yeah. And then we heard from Mark Edie that says O-line way up for sure. Yeah. And we're looking at some other stuff. So this was one I'm going to bring up because Wes gave another answer, but I wanted to actually talk about this. Oh man, wow, we've gone over. Cornerback up, OLB down. I was going to say I'm surprised people didn't talk about offense outside linebacker. You still love the guys at the top, and they did add someone that's a potential at outside linebacker that they really liked. But I understand why fans are like, you're really going to use a guy that's small? Right. They've got to have something in mind.
We're not certain yet if they have fully addressed the need in depth. So
we got a winner from Ron Schultz. Big Bro Show up. After last week, we had nowhere else to go.
No place to go but up.
All right, I think I got them all. That with everything.
Sherry Richards said the OC better be up.
Yeah. That's a good point. I'm not gonna deny that. I don't want to have to talk about the coaches every show. That's why I just said, we're talking about coaches, but we're not talking about coaches. Because sometimes it's kind of nice to have because you're going to hear the same thing from the same people all the time and nothing that the coaches are going to do, great or terrible, is really going to change people's opinions. So they're just going to say it, but that's all right. You're allowed to have your opinion. That's fine. So, sure. I already hit it up before. I'll say it again in case you're coming in late. Don't miss. We're going SCN up. Don't miss Steel City Insider tomorrow noon on our audio only platforms. Anywhere you get podcasts, look for Steelers or Steel Curtain Network or SCN, and you will find us. Because Steel City Insider, not only is it Jim Wexel, not only is it Jeremy Ritz. I think I got it right. I don't know. I might have said it different than last time. You've got special guest Craig Wolfley. You got special guest Alan Faneca talking offensive line. Don't miss out on that. Make sure you hit that up. And make sure you're checking out all the shows. You're going to have other good things. You got Let's Ride tomorrow morning. You got the mailbag segment, which is always lots of fun. You've got the curtain call tomorrow night here. I'm sure a lot of you will be back for that tomorrow night that are here in the live chat now. I'll have a Stat Geek Thursday talking some things with offensive line based on a question that I had. And what Yin's talking about, you never know what Yin's is talking about, but it's going to be entertaining. And you got the Steelers preview then coming. Lots of good stuff. Make sure you're checking it out. Like we said, also just, we have a new Steel Curtain Network Facebook page. Go like it, follow it, whatever you do on Facebook. I don't remember what you do there because I don't do it anymore. And a Twitter account, as well as FFSN that we're still plugging away, doing things there. You can listen to KT Smith break down stuff on an NFL level, which is really good stuff there if you want to check that out. All right, Rich, what do you have to say to close this out tonight?
Hey, actually, this is an easy one tonight. We will get the official schedule out later this week. That's what I'm excited for. Gives us a fun show for next week. Actually, one that I really enjoy looking into what might be fun to go to as a fan, because that's why I'm looking for the schedule to come out as well, because I'm wanting to look at what I want to go to as a fan. And, once that comes out, to me, that's just one step closer to, regular season, even preseason Steeler football.
Yes.
Can't wait.